Welcome to the Heart of the City Regina Downtown podcast series. I will be your host, Dominika Denev, Manager of Marketing and Communications for Regina Downtown Business Improvement District. Today I am joined by Chad Boudreau of Comic Readers, located at 2125 11th Avenue in downtown Regina. Thank you for joining us today, Chad.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Awesome. Me too. How's your day been going?
Every day is a little bit different, but I've grown accustomed to this new way of operating.
Yeah, you're adapting good?
I think so.
Yeah, as good as you can.
Certainly early on, certainly every day was a new challenge, a new way of thinking about how to continue to operate. So I like to think that we've settled into a new routine. And so we've gotten used to that, but it certainly isn't any replacement for the way we used to do business.
Yeah. Well, let's dive right in there and just talk about who Comic Readers is and kind of the way you used to do business and what people would expect when they would have come into your store.
For sure. So Comic Readers is a family of 3 stores. We have 2 in Regina, one of which is Regina Downtown, and one in Medicine Hat, Alberta. We are locally owned and operated, and we've been in business for more than 20 years here in the city. The downtown store specifically has been around for more than 10 years. Now, one might think that we only sell comics because of our name, which is Comic Readers, but that certainly isn't the case. Over the years, we've become a diversified store, meaning we've branched out to things beyond comics and graphic novels. So we sell board games, role-playing games, miniatures, paint and other hobby supplies, toys, collectible card games, and probably other things that I've forgotten to mention. In general, our products are geek and pop culture related, and I mean that in the kindest, coolest way possible. So in the old days, as I like to call them, people, when they walked into the store, they'd be surrounded by things that I hope they had interest in. And then we were always here to help them out and give recommendations. And it was a great community feeling in the store, I think, especially when we had in-store events. Since mid-March, we've had to close our doors to the general public, which means no foot traffic and certainly no in-store events. And that has left quite a void in the store in terms of its vibe.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So now as we roll into the next part of the discussion of how you've had to adapt to COVID-19, the provincial state of emergency, you discussed having to create new routines. Would you mind kind of elaborating a bit on those?
For sure. When I come in the morning, I do what I usually do. Even in the old days, we turn the computers on, fire up the email, make sure our social media is running, which is even more important now because we take customer requests and orders through our Facebook page, through phone and through email. I make sure that the wireless debit machine that we've had to get so we can take payment at the door or even in the alleyway, make sure it's charged and wiped down, make sure our counters are clean and clear so that we can organize customer orders as they come in through phone, email, and through Facebook. I do a few things every morning just to kind of build myself up to get ready for the day. One of which is I review the previous day's transactions. We've been taking names so we can track orders as they come in. And every morning when I come in and I'm got my computer turned on, I write down everyone's name on a piece of paper that supported us the day before. And it just helps me feel good that thinking about us and are helping us out by making purchases. So I write that down, those names on pieces of paper every morning. And when I fill up a piece of paper, I tape it to our front window.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's something to, just keep the energy up in the morning.
Yeah, that like give me chills actually. That's super cute. I like that. Aww.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
We do what we can to
exactly. Yeah.
keep yourself going in these times, you know.
Yeah.
So then we're here 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. every day. There's usually myself and another staff member. It's weird. We keep a distance from each other. So for instance, today, Joel will be running the till and using the phone, and he'll be using the wireless debit credit machine. and I won't touch that stuff. Or just try to cut down on cross-contamination, so to speak. So my job today will be to use our second computer to keep an eye on email and Facebook requests if they come in heavily. And if there isn't a lot of requests coming in, then I get cleanup duty, where I fill up buckets with hot soapy water and I continue the deep clean of the store that I started about 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. Those are awesome tips. I like this. You have like a really good process in place, I would say, like just, and the part about having separate roles when you are there with another staff member, and just how you keep just using those, say, supplies or those like the computer and etc. It's just like so you don't have cross contamination stuff. That's great. That's really good tips, Chad.
Yeah, like I think, like, this is maybe an aside, but in some of the reading I've been doing about being closed but having new routines or preparing to open, I think having those expectations of yourself, of your staff, is maybe even more important than your expectations of your customers. So we can talk about this more when we talk about reopen, but I think it's important for our customers when they come back into the store that they see that we are cleaning the counters and that staff have separate duties, so we're not touching everything together. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to be really important when stores open up, because I think, I don't know if it's the right term, but it's going to be like, businesses have to prove that we're safe and that we're taking this seriously, yet that we're still here to do business. And I think if we don't do this properly, it could become a real public relations nightmare.
Absolutely. And I think it's just, it's reminding people it's not a free for all again. There still are those important protocols in place for a reason, right? To keep the curve flattened and not have to shut things down again or anything like that. So I think it's great that you've implemented this stuff already and preparing yourself and getting into a routine where everyone will feel comfortable when there might be consumers coming in and stuff to buy things. So I think that's great. And you mentioned, so you've implemented being able to do the wireless debit machine at the front door so people don't come in, or doing like a curbside pickup. And then do you do deliveries as well, Chad? Or just the curbside?
Just the curbside so far. We've considered doing delivery, and we've considered doing delivery, but we never acted on it just because we had so many people taking advantage of curbside pickup.
That's awesome.
Had the lockdown gone on longer, like next month or even into the summer, we probably would be working on trying to get delivery going. Mm-hmm. But now with us being able to open in some form in May 19th, we probably won't do delivery. But we'll see how things go after May 19th and then make another decision.
Absolutely. And I know you mentioned previously to me that you were having a few supplier kind of, I wouldn't say if the issues is the right word, but just not being able to get products due to COVID-19 and not being able to get the stuff into your store in time. So I'm just wondering, have you had any changes with that? Or are you still seeing some issues with some of the products that you can't carry at the moment?
Yeah, we have a lot of product in the store. We carry quite a deep inventory on a lot of our bestsellers, best-selling board games. We have a lot of comics, graphic novels, etc. So I mean, we have a lot of stuff that we can sell to people that are looking for stuff, and that's great. But yes, there are supply issues. Two of our biggest suppliers are closed. Both are in the US, which has its own series of problems right now. But one of those big suppliers is our supplier of new comics and graphic novels and most of our backstock. So right now, until about mid-May, I can't order new comics. I can't order comics that I've sold. The only silver lining of that is that's across the whole industry. So it's not just me that can't have new comics, it's everyone. But that's caused quite a stir in the comic industry, because like myself, when we had to close, we were thinking, well, every Wednesday we'll have new comics. And as long as you have new comics, that's some sort of guaranteed revenue coming in. So when we heard that Diamond Comics distributor was closing, that is our guaranteed revenue gone. and you
Mm-hmm.
can't replace it. We're we're set up in the long run to survive that because we're a diversified store, because we carry other things. But there are still, mainly in the US, but there's still some in Canada, just pure comic shops. And those stores are suffering terribly right now. It's hard to tell how stores are doing because there's different lockdowns across different states, but I do know here in Canada that there's a store in British Columbia, a pure comic shop, that has closed their doors permanently because of this.
Oh, yeah, that's sad. And you mentioned because of that too, there's been an increase in some of your other products, right? That people are kind of venturing into new things that they maybe didn't look at before.
Yeah, certainly
Yeah.
the types of products that we sell in terms of the quantity has certainly changed. A perfect example of this is puzzles. I've always stocked a small selection of puzzles here at the downtown store because I grew up doing puzzles, and I think puzzles are a great pastime. And if I sold 2 or 3 a year, I'd be happy. But I've sold so many more puzzles since we closed our doors because people are looking for ways to stay engaged at home.
Yeah.
Board games, which have always been a good seller, certainly have seen an increase. On the other side, the Funko Pops, which are like a collectible figurine, people use them at home. They put them at their office. They used to sell very heavily here at the store, and since we closed, I barely sold any because people don't really need those right now. Plus, that's a particular thing where you have to be able to see it, I think, to really decide that you want it, and no one can come in the store right now, and we don't have a lot of product online.
Right.
So certainly what we sell has changed. Yeah, and we have to adapt to that. Fortunately, all of our Canadian-based distributors are open, so I can still receive new board games. I can still order board games that I want to restock, and that's the same for puzzles and some other things that we sell. On the other hand, new production of board games has been delayed. There's delays of getting product from their sources. So puzzles are selling like crazy everywhere. So it's very hard for me to reorder puzzles. So yeah, there's definitely challenges that we're facing right now in terms of getting supply.
Absolutely. And I know you mentioned too, Chad's willing to pop on and do possibly even like an Instagram live with me at one point and just kind of show some of these puzzles and the different board games, and even what is it called, Chad, where you have the figurines that you paint and stuff yourself? You were saying.
Yeah, I think we have a couple options there. We could do it as the store is now, or after I do a little bit of redesign and open up some floor space to get ready for May 19th, we could do a tour then, and I could kind of show the steps that we've taken to meet the requirements set out by the government.
Yeah, that'd be great. And then we can touch on some of the maybe new items that people didn't know you carry and kind of what's really popular right now, and create some buzz around the new kind of focus in the store too. I think that'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
You mentioned you were willing to even discuss here today a bit of how you've been feeling through this process, and kind of a little bit more of the personal side, if you were still willing to chat about that today.
Yeah. I am able to do that. Let's see where I want to start with that. So we so we sell like a variety of products as mentioned earlier, but really what I think Comic Readers is that we're an extension of a community of like-minded individuals. So like we're an extension of the gaming community, the comic reading community. We're an extension of role players, we're the collectors, the modelers. We share these same interests with people, which is why we're able to make recommendations. It's why we're able to stock the stuff that people are asking for. This is the stuff we know, and we pride ourselves on that knowledge. And that knowledge is driven by a shared interest. Now, we've been hearing a lot about community during this pandemic, and there appears to be an increased interest in supporting local right now, and that's great. And I can't thank people enough for doing that for us, but doing that for your local restaurants or any local business. And that's the optimist in me, the person that feels good. We're all going to make it through this. People are supporting local businesses they already love or discovering businesses for the first time. And that's great because local businesses really need your support right now. But there's the other part of me that kind of crawls up out of the basement at times during this stressful pandemic where it's like, yeah, support us now. We love it. We love you for it. But, are you going to keep supporting local businesses when the world returns to some semblance of normal? Once we get back to working full time and our kids are in school, as we get close to the holiday season and we're all feeling busy, is it going to be easier just to go back and shop online? And I just hope, some people will, and that's fine. Everyone makes their own decisions, and I can't be harsh on anyone for doing what's right for them. But shopping local is important all the time, not just during this time of crisis for local business. It's always important because local businesses keep your community strong. We employ people in the community. The taxes we pay stay in your community. They stay in the province. They stay in the country. I feel most times that I'm going to make it through this, that my business will make it through it, but I know there's a lot of other businesses out there that probably won't. And that's not because they're not getting enough support or that the pandemic is like fully responsible. There's just so many things that can influence whether a business stays open or can't. But definitely something that can help them stay open is just support from local community all the time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And do you have any advice for other local businesses that you feel might be needing like a pick-me-up or just that community support and just don't know how to get themselves maybe to the optimistic side like you are, and maybe they're stuck in that rut?
Yeah. Well, what works for me might not work for other people, but one thing that really helps me is to stay engaged with the community. So maybe we're somewhat fortunate in that we had in-store gaming events, so I know how to reach out to different community groups that would play here, or community groups where we would host events for. So for example, I used to do work with the Regina Public Library, going to libraries and doing talks about graphic novels or supporting Free Comic Book Day. Well, they've reached out to me to hopefully in the future start doing some meetings or podcasts like this where I talk to patrons of the RPL, through a podcast or through a Zoom meeting. There's ways that I can reach out to customers to say, hey, we're still here. We're doing well. Thanks for your support. How are you doing? I think hearing how your customers are doing at this time helps you realize how you're doing. Some of my customers are still employed, some of them aren't. And every personal story I hear helps me kind of contextualize how I'm doing, for the better or for the worse. The simple things that I do is stick to a routine. If I'm running a routine, my mind doesn't get to wander to the darker places, because routines that I have set in place are to help myself and my staff and the store succeed through this, to make it through. When I'm not doing something, when I lose focus, that's where I start catastrophizing. So I think having a routine for yourself, if you still are fortunate enough to have staff on payroll, give them a routine, communicate to them, reach out to your customers, be a member of your community still, and I think that'll help keep you positive.
Thank you, Chad. I truly appreciate your honesty and just like opening up to that. I think it's really beneficial for others to hear those comments, and just there are people who feel the same, right? And I even feel the same, say not on a business side of things, but just on a personal side when I have daily routines, like to get you out of bed some days, right? Like some days your emotions just take over and you just know like, okay, if I just go downstairs and have my tea and meditate, I know it's going to be better, right? And just sticking to whatever your routines are just to make you get through. I think that's really important.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
like at home, I have a family, so that's great because they're doing well, they're safe. We have good family nights. But yeah, you mentioned tea. I've been drinking a lot of tea at night.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
What's your
just so
favorite
very,
tea?
I don't know. My wife brings home piles of tea. There's this peach ginger one that I'm drinking right now
Oh,
that
yummy.
has a bit of a bite, but it has that citrus feel.
Yeah.
Um, I find it very, very soothing to have hot tea at night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been getting back into my hot lemon water, and then the morning I do red rose tea with like a hazelnut coconut coffee cream. It's like,
Oh, wow.
yeah, if you don't have that, it's kind of like those people who have their morning coffee, right? That's kind of I don't really drink coffee anymore, so that's my morning routine. So I enjoy that. So before we end the podcast today, is there anything else you'd like to mention that you might not have spoke about, or?
I would like to say that I think I've already said that we're here 10 to 4, and you can contact us through our phone number, through email, which is downtown@comicreaders.com. We're on Facebook as Comic Readers Downtown. We're on Instagram as Comic Readers Downtown, all one word. And we're on Twitter at Comic Readers. And we post information on there about how we're doing, what kind of products we have, if we have any sales on the go. We love people to reach out, order some items, of course, but also just to say hello, show us their support. It just feels really good to know that we're a part of our larger community and that the larger community perseveres.
Perfect. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Chad. And I look forward to you joining us again, possibly on a podcast format or more of like an Instagram live or doing some sort of tour once we kind of work into the reopen Saskatchewan plan. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a wonderful day.
Yeah, you too.